I know you're listening. You're here because something isn't right. Something feels twisted, upside down. Things don't add up. Hello, human. Welcome to our twisted universe. In this episode, your hosts Joe and Christy talk with the Unchained Brain Podcast about all manner of things, from healing with frequencies to spiritual battles and just about everything in between. Buckle up, kids. Here we go. Hello, human.
Hi, and welcome to our Twisted Universe. Today, we're going to be talking to Unchained Brain, and we have a really exciting show for you today. We're just going to go out there and talk about esoteric topics, and anything that comes up is open game. Unchained, you're live on TikTok right now?
We're live on TikTok, but you have 99.9% of my attention.
That's awesome. So I found you on TikTok, and you have some really interesting conversations and topics you talk about. What got you started with your program?
Well, what got me started feeling like life was not what I thought it was is I got in a car crash after the 1995 Super Bowl. I broke every bone in the left side of my face and left my body and had reconstructive surgery to rebuild the orbital bone, cheekbone, nose, and jaw. I wasn't eating solid foods for several months, and it took about a year or so to recover. And 6 months into the recovery, I started having these wild, lucid dreams that led into what felt like an out-of-body experience. So in 1995, America Online was brand new. There wasn't any information accessible with any of these esoteric topics. So I went to a local psychic and I told her what was happening. And she patted me on the shoulder and said, "Honey, don't worry. That's called astral projection." And I said, "What?" She said, you need to buy this book. And I said, "You're just trying to sell me a book, right?" And she says, "Did you have a car accident recently?" And I got chills over my whole body. And so I bought this book on astral projection and I started keeping a dream journal, and I had probably 40 or 50 astral travel experiences that I documented and explored this other dimension that made absolutely no sense to me at 17 years old. And that sent me down the rabbit hole of trying to discover the nature of this reality.
For people that have never really experienced that, how would you describe it compared to a normal dream?
So in a normal dream, you feel like you are watching a movie and that you have no control over the decisions that are made. And you remember people, situations, circumstances, or things that make no sense. The next step is a lucid dream in which you become conscious in the dream world and can actually choose to make decisions and navigate the dream world like you would a first-person video game. And then one step beyond that is that from the lucid dream goes to sleep paralysis, where you are paralyzed within the body. And if you allow the astral body to detach from the physical body, you will detach and you will be able to view the physical body beneath you as you're floating above. And that is the next dimension. That is what's called or referred to as the astral world, which is an actual dimension that is accessible to our spirit or our soul or our astral body.
I've had experiences like that where I knew I was having a lucid dream and I didn't like what was happening. I can control my dreams once in a while. And I remember trying to wake up, and I had the paralysis. And I was like, I'm not in my body yet. And I was getting mad because I wanted to start moving my limbs. And I remember it just being so trippy. Like I could not get into my body for quite some time. And then I had the radio playing, and through the radio, there was something else talking to me through the radio. Like I could hear the talk show, but then there was layers and layers of something else that was speaking directly to me, which I couldn't explain that. I don't know what the hell was happening there. It was
something that I'm sorry to cut you off. Please continue.
No, I didn't think it was good is what I'm trying to say.
Well, something that might be helpful for your viewers listening is I love when I hear a show and people give advice and tips and tricks on how to do cool things. So if people keep a dream journal and during the day they look at their hands and they say, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? What's going to happen is they're going to have a dream at night, and in the dream, they will see their hands. And when you see your hands in a dream, they're bioluminescent. There's an auric field around the hands in the dream world. And that will be a signal for the person to go lucid. And when they go lucid, they can do anything they want. They can fly, they can walk through walls, they can move things with their mind, they can travel to different places. They're a superhero with no rules. They're completely invincible in this world. And so lucid dreaming is the first step leading into astral travel.
I have a question. When you're out there and you're lucid dreaming, do you encounter other beings?
Absolutely. And you can sense an interaction, right? So I think there's dark entities and light entities, and no one has any authority over you in that field. There's free will, I think, in every dimension. And so if you have an interaction that doesn't feel right, you just move on. So no one can do anything to you in that world.
I've never heard that before. So you feel like you're perfectly protected regardless of what is circling around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's called spiritual armor. And I think that's something that comes from spiritual discernment and also getting out of the energetic frequency of the third dimension, which is really based on the lower three energy meridians. So, greed, lust, envy, jealousy, rage, anger, anxiety, stress, frustration, all of these short-term, low-level energetic frequencies that are propagated by mainstream media, by 440 hertz musical frequency, by stress, by pollution, by GMOs, by fluoride, by EMF, by all of this stuff. And so when we shield ourselves from that, we strengthen ourselves at a spiritual level, and then all of a sudden our perception, ability to receive higher energies increases. And so the experiential reality in the third dimension shifts to something completely different, which I think scratches the surface of the fourth dimension. And fourth dimensional consciousness is where thoughts manifest instantaneously. And so we've all had these experiences where we see license plates that are 444, 888, 999, 777, phone numbers, billboards, magazines, ads on your phone. That is a glimpse of fourth dimensional consciousness where you're in the flow. And so ultimately the next step for humanity is the fourth dimension. And I think that's what the control system wants, to keep people rooted in the lower energy meridians and prevent people from getting into the heart, prevent people from speaking their truth, prevent people from having spiritual vision, and also the crown meridian, which is Christ consciousness.
And what do you think the reason is behind that? All the poisoning of the food and the atmosphere and the music, and like, why are they trying to keep us down, do you think?
So I think at some point in the not too distant past, there was some sort of reset that could be related to the Nephilim, the mud flood. There was some sort of reset that I believe that the previous civilization was highly advanced. You have Tartarian architectural masterpieces with magnetrons and free energy and sound healing and star forts and all of this amazing stuff. And it looks like it was destroyed. And it looks like whoever took over this operation is nefarious. And there is some sort of dark, nefarious agenda to suppress the true potential of spiritual beings having a human experience to keep them in a collective amnesia and prevent them from awakening so they can manifest health and wealth and prosperity and love and abundance and freedom and joy and happiness and all these things that inherently is who we are as human beings. They are trying to take away our humanity with their control system. And it is all intentional, in my opinion.
It's just so aggravating. Like the frequencies, like when you were talking about how they had the free energy, I saw that with the buildings, the way they were made. They were able to produce energy. Also, there was something about the architecture. What do they call that? Where
modern art, the brutal architecture.
Yeah, it's even our architecture now is to like shut us down.
Right.
Well, and if you look at a computer chip, right? A computer chip, if you take an aerial view of a city, it's designed the same way as a computer chip to harvest energy.
And when you're saying harvest energy, we are the batteries, just like in the Matrix.
100%. It's, I mean, Hollywood is
not so
predictive programming central, right?
That is so wow. So you started traveling out of your body. You said, did you have an NDE when you were in your crash?
So when the accident happened, everything went black. There was a gap of time that I could not fill in for about 6 months. Wow. And at the night of the accident, the only thing I remember is being on a stretcher with a neck brace, looking up at 5 paramedics that were looking at me like they had a big problem. And there was this missing time. Now that gap was filled in about 6 months down the road when I started having dreams of floating above the accident and seeing the paramedics carefully taking my body out of the vehicle with a neck brace and putting me on a stretcher and Velcroing, strapping me down to the stretcher. And then that's when all of these dreams and astral experiences started happening.
Are you traveling and doing work on the astral plane, or are you going on adventures? What do you do?
So I had just turned 18. So I got in the accident in January 95. After the Super Bowl, I was 17. I turned 18 that summer, and it's just not something I wanted to deal with. It was so weird and so different and scary and uncomfortable that I kept a journal for a while. I had about maybe 40 some odd experiences, and I was getting ready to go to college. I just didn't want to deal with it. So I pretty much just locked away the journal and put everything on hold for a while. But I had some pretty amazing experiences, flight, telekinesis, precognition, remote viewing, traveling up through what I did not know the word firmament at the time, but there felt like there was this ceiling or this dome covering the astral world, and I could travel through it, and then I would be back in my body. So I don't know what's beyond that.
I mean, I've heard people saying that they're trying to keep our souls trapped in this firmament. They don't want us to escape it, that we just keep reincarnating as slaves, basically.
Well, and that's why you shouldn't fly to the light when you die. So when sweet little grandma comes up to you at the point of death and says, come with me to the light, you need to ask grandma some questions. Nice to see you, grandma. When was my birthday? What was my dog's name? What was my sister's name? Where did I grow up? Tell me about my life, because grandma is most likely an archonic dark entity impersonating sweet little grandma, trying to get you to go to the light where your memory's wiped, and then you keep experiencing samsara, which is the endless cycle of reincarnation. And so the 3 days of darkness that everybody talks about has nothing to do with the eclipse. It has nothing to do with the rapture. It has nothing to do with the apocalypse. It has to do with turning your back on the light at the point of death. And then you experience 3 days of absolute torture and darkness and hell So then you can transcend to the next dimension and experience nirvana, which is the opposite of samsara.
That's the first I've heard of that. I've never heard that before. That's really interesting.
There's so much predictive programming in Hollywood about not flying to the light, especially you look at Finding Nemo. There was a Star Trek episode. They tell you this. If you go to the light, something bad is going to happen. And there's a lot of esoteric references, especially like the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And there's a lot of stuff out there about not going to the light because, you know, that could be the memory wipe and then reincarnation.
The movie Poltergeist, where the little lady, the psychic lady, was telling her to go into the light, but that was, again, the wrong way.
100%. There we go. That's confirmation. I got the chills. That's great.
What about your silver cord? When I've prayed for help, and I've had to pray for some serious help before, I've felt and seen in my spiritual vision, I've seen the cord snap tight, and it looked like, because it went up into the sky and it connected to God, but like Christy said, it's like there's a ceiling there. It looked like it punctures that ceiling to connect. And I had two angels that came down on either side of me to help in this particular situation. Is that I did connect to God, right?
So in most of the books that I've read about astral travel, they talk about the astral body being attached to the physical body by this silver cord. At no point did I ever see that cord. And I was out probably 40 something times. Yeah. And I was always worried that I was going to die and not be able to get back to my body because I never saw this cord.
Tether to get back to the spaceship.
Exactly.
Huh. Maybe it's just a phone line, so more or less.
That's interesting.
I've heard about it in a lot of stories about the silver cord. I've always been.
So you had a dream where this happened?
No, we were in a spiritual battle, and nothing I was doing was really having any effect, and so I called for reinforcements, and that's when I made the connection, and the two angels came down on either side of me with a thud, and set to work, both helping and showing.
Were you conscious?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
So you were.
And also, like, it's weird. I was conscious, but I was also in a very deep meditative state to deal with the entity. It
was a demonic possession, actually, and it's not like we walk around. Oh, hey.
I don't like to talk about it, but
it's a little PTSD for us. But somebody drank a lot, and I feel like alcohol opens portals. And this person it was unmistakable that they were possessed. And there was multiple tones coming out, growling, snap teeth, and it was talking, and the eyes were weird. I mean, it was just so bizarre. Growling. When it growled, there was like multiple voices. I mean, it was like the movies. And I was like, The Exorcist wasn't that far off. We didn't have any green pea soup, but other than that, it was pretty
Was this someone that you knew? This was an experience you had physically with someone you knew?
Yes.
Yeah. when I was in that state I called for help, when they came to help, I also was able to see, instead of the person, I was able to see the demonic entity, and it's like a photograph in my mind now, from that. That was it was a challenging experience.
Well, it's interesting you said alcohol, because the root of the word alcohol is alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so that is a gateway. That's why they call it spirits, right? Yeah. So that's a gateway to allow these dark entities to inhabit this energetic bandwidth, and the body acts like a host. So I think alcohol is the worst drug ever invented.
Yeah. I mean, it was about a 2-hour battle. It was,
yeah,
but we weren't going to give up. Like I thought we were all equipped. I have like my selenite wand, and I'm a Reiki master, and I was like, oh, not like I want to take this on, but I'm not gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna leave it in this person. And so we fought, and that's what happened. I didn't see the angels, but I did see the armor of God on Joe, which was a trip. I mean, it was almost like Thor. I was like, what the hell's going on?
Do you guys still have a relationship with this person that
Yeah.
was inhabited by this entity?
Yes.
Yeah. They're in much better shape now.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, alcohol is, I would say people that are able to use discernment. I mean, we have psychic abilities and things like that. So, I mean, it was just like, there was no mistaking. We knew what we were dealing with right off the bat, but it doesn't happen every day. But looking back on my younger years, when people get like blacked out drunk and then they flip a switch, they're probably inhabited.
Yep.
And it's not them. And they don't really, the person that had this experience didn't remember anything the next day, but now has flashbacks of it. And it was kind of like third person. They were watching the whole scene.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, that's Al Ghul Hall for you, right?
And it's interesting. Once we being me and the angels had blasted this thing away, it was like the fire of the sun coming out of all three of us, out of our hands. And it just washed it away like you wash dirt off your driveway. And it was screaming and howling as we got rid of it. Then it was gone. And I could still see with my spirit, I guess my astral body, I could see the person out of their body, and they were kind of disoriented and kind of like, what's going on here? And I'm like, you're out of your body, get back in your body, I said. And they're like, huh? Of course. I mean, if you told somebody they were out of their body, they're not going to believe you. And I grabbed a hold of their spirit and I'm like, get back in there. And I shoved them back in their body, and then they woke up. And I kind of came out of the state I was in as well and came back to this world. It was very scary yet profound experience that I'll never forget.
It was saying, I was scared. I was scared. But it was saying all kinds of weird things. Like, it referred to them as many, they, it was never like singular. It talked about the many. And when it growled and did all the weird things, there was multiple levels to the voice. And it was saying things like out of the blue, it was like, we control the music, we control the fashion. I don't know what else did it say. It was just some really trippy things.
Yeah, they always refer to themselves as we, and we control everything. And don't waste your time. The person's already gone. That kind of thing. And yeah, it was rough.
Well, you made it through, so it sounds like it turned into overcoming some darkness and probably gaining some faith, and that's a pretty cool story. I like it.
We don't bust that out very often.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be shy to share that stuff, because I think we live in a spiritual realm.
Oh yeah.
And we're intentionally kept down by the control system to not be able to experience spiritual vision or a connection to that realm.
I definitely, looking back on that whole situation, it's profound, because, you're talking to another dimensional being, or many of them. And even though it was obviously a demonic, it's still not a human. And it was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
I'm looking back going, wow, it's like our life is just nothing that they told us was real is real. Like, it's like almost the exact opposite. Like, there are those beings here, and they're all over the place. They're inhabiting people constantly. There are other dark attachments that aren't really like demonics. They're more like parasites too. There's those things floating around. I don't know if you've experienced that.
Look at all the shape shifting that happens with celebrities, politicians, news anchors. You guys have seen those glitches, right? Where the faces change and it's like their hologram has a glitch and then you can see this demonic entity under the hologram. Have you guys seen some of that stuff?
The Beyonce for sure comes to mind.
Well, look what happened to General Petraeus when he was sitting there in front of Congress. Did you ever see the interview where General Petraeus is sitting there in a congressional session, or it was senatorial? I think it was John McCain was speaking to Petraeus, and John McCain's eyes got this big, and Petraeus started to morph and shift. And everyone rushed around him to kind of shield him from the cameras. And his eyes were glitching from what looked like a slit, like a reptilian eye, back to normal, back to this reptilian. And even his skull, like his forehead, was glitching and moving. It was wild. That's on, I had the Fittest Flat Earther on my podcast last night, and he has that video on his channel on TikTok. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, I could dig it up and find it for you, but it's something you got to see. You can even search up on YouTube, General Petraeus shape-shifting John McCain, and you'll see this, and it is wild. And that's one of many examples of this too. It happens frequently.
So do you think they're like reptilians, or do you think they're demonics, or what's going on there, you think?
Well, for starters, I think most Hollywood celebrities are gender inverted, and most high-ranking political officials and multi-billionaires are Baphomet worshiping Satanists who intentionally gender invert their families as a sacrifice to their deity, who is Baphomet, who was a transgender, half man, half goat with female breasts, and that is Baphomet. And so elite gender inversion goes back a long way to British royalty and even far past that. So gender inversion is very common. It's much more common than we understand, because especially now with the technology they have in plastic surgery, what they're able to do to a male becoming a female or a female becoming a male, it's really hard to tell the difference. And when you really dig into elite gender inversion, almost all A-list Hollywood celebrities, all of what we believe are males are female, born female, and all of the A-list females were born male. And when you look at skeletal structure and the skull and the ratio of the shoulder to the head, and you look at gait, how the legs move, how they go up and down stairs, the length of the arms, where their pelvis is. Once you see this, you can never go back, because we have been fooled so bad, it's unbelievable. So you have that component. And then when you look at the shape shifting, I don't know what to make of that. So I think they have holographic technology that they use frequently. That probably relates to Project Bluebeam, but I think that these holograms are something they use, especially with, on TV, and all that technology. So they're doing something to cloak what they really are. Now, are they interdimensional evil entities? Are they coming from the lands beyond the ice wall? Are they coming from subterranean Earth? I don't know if anyone knows, but I don't think they're human.
Could be a mixed bag of all of those. I mean, really.
Yeah.
If outside of what we, as the ones who are living a lie, have been used to, they have those technologies, and it's a common thing.
You guys have seen the movie They Live, right? 1988.
I was going to bring that up, actually.
Roddy Piper. Well, before he died, he tweeted They Live was a documentary. And, when he puts the glasses on, he can see the real world, and he can see through this veil of deception, all the marketing, all the billboards, all the magazines, all these people that are masquerading as human that are actually wearing this hologram that you can only see through with the glasses. And I think that we are beginning to develop this spiritual vision where we're able to see through these holograms.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I was thinking about that today, that, more or less everything we know is a lie. And the more I lean into my spiritual side, the more I can my discernment increases. And you look around and you don't see the illusion anymore. You just see things for what they are. And it's like, it's a pretty hollow world when you see that. And I'm like, well, what do I do with this now? Left with all this empty nonsense, basically, and nothing really is what it used to be.
They don't want you to have hope. Okay. And when people begin awakening, it's scary. It feels dark. It feels bleak. It feels hopeless. It's depressing. It's stressful. It affects everything, because you look at all of our culture and all of society and all the interworkings of food and medicine and technology and media and all of it. And you say, I'm being bombarded by this. The GMOs, the fluoride in the water, they're spraying stuff up in the sky. They're who knows what's in these, like the education system. It's constant bombardment, the lies, the deceit, Operation Mockingbird and the media. Everything's a lie. Everything's scripted. There's a nefarious agenda. But what they don't want you to do is take a step back and see the beauty of creation, the beauty of a sunrise, of a sunset, of the stars, of a mountain, of a lake, of a beautiful woman, of your children, of your own physical body, this amazing creation, just the magnificence of a human eyeball and what it can do. So they don't want you to get in touch with the beauty of creation. And so people that are waking up, they have to remember to develop the spiritual armor so they can still be connected to beauty and joy and love and peace and harmony. They don't want you to have that. And there are plenty of tools and plenty of biohacks and plenty of modalities that can let people unplug and reconnect to themselves.
What would you say you do to combat that? Because when I woke up, I've been partially awake, I would say, since like 92, because I watched a video by William Cooper.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
They got rid of him. They got rid of him pretty quick.
And then there was like Waco, Texas, and
Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, all those things started happening that weren't adding up. And then Rwanda. And so and I was in Portland, Oregon. So we had a lot of like alternative medicine, which I always lean towards holistic healing versus pharmaceutical. But when, the WikiLeaks broke the documents from the DNC, and I learned about all the pizza and all that stuff going on. I definitely had a dark night of the soul. It took me a couple years to process the evil, because I lived my whole life thinking, things were mostly okay. And, there was some things that didn't feel right, and 9/11 and all that. But when I found out about what was going on, especially when it involves littles, I freaked out, and it took me a long time to come through all that. And there's nobody to talk to at the time. And that's kind of why we started up our channel. We wanted to be a place to help people get through it. Because a lot of times people, obviously they're going to think you're a whack job and you have a tinfoil hat.
Well, the thing I'll say to you and all of your listeners and to everybody listening on TikTok is make content, because the biggest mistake you can make is trying to hit people with a fire hose in your personal life, your
Right.
spouse, your friends, your coworkers. You can't. Unfortunately, you just can't. And so the beautiful thing about this algorithm is it connects people like us who want to get this information out. And so these conversations can re-energize you, can rejuvenate you, and increase your hope and increase your faith and increase your energetic bandwidth so you can share the information. So anybody listening on TikTok right now and anybody listening to your show, make content. The first time you turn your camera around and look at it and you start talking, you're going to feel weird. You're going to feel uncomfortable. They say that people's number one fear, up there with death by fire, is public speaking. So let that sink in for a second. It's very uncomfortable to start talking about this. And especially if you're on TikTok and you start making content like this, you're going to receive the worst comments you've ever read in your life.
Yeah.
And it's going to suck because it's going to make you doubt what you're doing, and it's going to make you insecure, and it's going to make you question yourself. But pretty soon you realize that these people are more scared than you because they're hiding behind their phone, typing this mean stuff because they're so scared to entertain these ideas. And when you move beyond that, you develop a spiritual armor that's like body armor, where all these bullets are going to bounce right off you, and you keep going. You stay the path. You are fearless. You are steadfast, and you make content. Everyone, I don't care if you have 0 followers. I started with absolutely 0 on TikTok. I just started talking one day and it turned into something, and we have to, because this is the way to connect. And this is the way to elevate the whole field.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're pretty comfortable with it now. We'll talk offhandedly about it with anybody. I mean, doing this show has really kind of helped us out of that shell to where we're not afraid to talk about it. And we can kind of gauge how traumatic it is for someone to hear it and, reel it back a little so that they can comprehend. And, if they're like, oh yeah, I had to, then you just dive in. But
well, we definitely need to connect on Facebook. I just started Facebook. I know that's funny, but I never had a Facebook. I just started. So I definitely want to follow you guys on Facebook and see these videos that you put out recently that have got a couple million views. So I just think the more collaboration, the better.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I mean, we lift each other up. Like we're happy to connect with like-minded people, and there's enough energy and space and love for all of us to win. Yep. Like there's no competition for us. We're just,
it's the quantum business model.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
and I'll definitely send you guys a copy of my book too. I published the Unchained Life Manual a few years ago on Amazon, and last month it was ranked number 5 in the nation for spiritual and mental healing. So the book has done phenomenal, and it's helped a lot of people, and I'd love to send you a copy. Read it. If you like it, share it. So it's all these different biohacks I talk about, like light therapy, sound therapy, grounding, inversion, meditation, ways to increase the energetic bandwidth and really, rise up out of the lower frequencies.
You have to combat it every day. I mean, you have to be mindful about it. In our house, we have so many healing modalities. We have like far infrared sauna. We just got something called the Opus sound bed, and it's a frequency bed, they're incredible. It's not a plug for them, but we just love it.
It's really cool.
It's really cool.
How does that work?
You put headphones on and you lay on a bed, and it pushes frequencies through your body, and you hear them as well. But it's almost like an internal massage, I guess they say. But you can do like meditations with it. You can do healing frequencies. There's things to wake you up, things to put you to sleep, all those. Like we have many, many channels on this sound bed that for whatever you want. But, we constantly try to do like healing modalities for ourselves because we are bombarded. Like everybody is just like, it's so heavy. You have to make a conscious effort in your life to, eat healthy, avoid the GMOs, like you were saying, like yep. All that is to keep us down. And it's a constant fight. things have been
Well, I'm
rough.
sure you guys are familiar with cymatics, right?
Cymatics, yeah.
Have you seen any of the videos that Nigel Sanford has put out on YouTube where he has the Caldini plate with the sand, and he'll run the sound frequencies up through the Caldini plate, and then the sand will form these different geometric patterns, right?
Yeah.
So every single energy meridian in the body, a lot of people call them chakras, but if people don't want to say, the word chakra because they feel it's too mumbo jumbo, the human body does have nerve centers. So these nerve bundles begin at the root, the sacrum, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. That's why you have a cowlick at the top of your head. That's a spiral. So each energy meridian corresponds to a different frequency. And so the solfeggio frequencies correspond to the human energy meridian system. So the sound healing, the sound bed sounds amazing. I love it. I love that technology.
They're so cool. They produce them in Austin. They're fairly new, but I think there's different variations of it. But it's called the Opus sound bed. It's amazing. It's the best
Love
thing
it.
I bought for myself.
I love it. Now, I don't have that, but I do like to. I've never even heard of that. I'm going to look into it. So make sure you send me the link.
Yeah.
But I use a pulsed electromagnetic field mat with far infrared technology under a red LED red light therapy bulb. And then obviously when the sun goes down, I have the blue light blocking glasses. I have the dark red ones if I'm not talking to someone and I'm just on my couch with my PEMF mat before bed. And so when the sun goes down and you block the blue light, you're tricking the pineal gland to make melatonin, even with all this external light on. And that's part of the reason why people are waking up at 3:00 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, because they're having an adrenaline spike because they're staring at a phone or they're watching TV until midnight. And with all the blue light exposure through the retina, they're not making melatonin. So then they try to go to bed and they're wired and their mind is going 1,000 miles an hour and they can't calm down. So we got to use these modalities to combat all of this external, energy that's negative.
It's everywhere too. Yeah. Everywhere you turn, even the music. I loved music. I was in Portland, Oregon for the 90s, like the grunge and
did you see Nirvana live?
I did.
Yeah. Right on. That's no.
I saw Soundgarden though.
Nice. You saw Soundgarden live.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's awesome, man.
We were all into that. Oh, our friends worked at the Roseland Theater and they were in the bands so we could go to all the shows. But yeah, I saw Nirvana with Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam.
Oh, what a concert.
It was rad.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I did not.
Right on.
Yeah, so I bought him tickets to go to Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Nice. That is awesome.
It was good.
Yeah, but all the music, like, I love music. Don't we all? I mean, we all love music. Like, I love the Eagles. And even, like, I go way back. I'm pretty old. There was a band called Echo and the Bunnymen. And I was listening to one of the lyrics on it in the last couple of years. And I'm like, they're talking about sacrificing people. And I'm like, then I listened to a Talking Heads song the other day. What was it? It's talking about a baby. And I'm like, these lyrics don't sound right. And at the time, way back when, I thought it was just a fun song. But when you start listening to the lyrics, like,
it's bad.
What's going on?
It's bad. It's bad.
Rock along with the music. And then when you wake up, you start actually deciphering the lyrics and you're like, oh, what?
I can't listen to any more. I don't even know what to listen to now.
Listen to the birds.
Well, there's a lot of good country. I like Dirty Heads, for like rock. Iration is good. Stick Figure is good. I don't think you can go wrong with Soundgarden. I think that Chris Cornell was a good guy and he was trying to expose and he was working with Avicii, and Chester Bennington to put that documentary out on, and Avicii put that music video out about. And so mysteriously, all three of them get suicided. So, I mean, the thing is a problem on a level that is incomprehensible to most of us.
Yeah.
And that, I think, ultimately is the currency of this reality for the dark forces that are running the show. And that is super dark. And I don't know if you guys want to go down that road on this show, or maybe that's a future show, but everybody needs to be aware of how big of a problem that is. And the fact that in this country alone, 800,000 kids go missing. How is that even possible? And how is that not on every single news station 24 hours a day? And then you say, well, who owns and runs the Amber Alert system? And then you go down that rabbit hole. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wild.
And
who did she know? You can't say that. You can't say that name, or you'll wind up suicided like 48 bodyguards.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, that Portland I believe Portland had a pretty big problem with that. And under all the city downtown, they have these, they call them like the Shanghai tunnels, but there's tunnel system all through the restaurants and the bars and everything underground in Portland. And I've heard some stories.
Oh, there's tunnel systems everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you really want to start digging deep, you look at the national parks. The national parks are situated where the majority of missing people are concentrated around the areas of these national parks. And then we start getting into like Bigfoot or Nephilim or giants or other entities. Did you guys ever see the documentary Missing 411 on Netflix?
I don't think so.
You have to. Okay. So let me just give you the cliff notes of this one part of the documentary. So these guys in the 70s, they have this hunting cabin outside Yosemite that's only accessible by horseback. And so they would go there every couple months for a hunting trip. Well, one night they're drinking beers, smoking cigarettes, and sitting by the fire after their trip during the day. They're at their camp and they start hearing these weird, deep, loud growls and moans and roars. They didn't think it was an animal because it was so deep and so loud. It sounded like a giant man groaning and moaning and screaming. So they all went into their shelter and they got their guns. One of the guys had a tape recorder. This is the 1970s. So he had a cassette recorder and they recorded these sounds. They made it through the night and they took the tape to an audio specialist that played the recording. And he used his instrumentation to determine that the being making these sounds had the lung capacity of a 9-foot tall man. So these things are out there. They're out there. They're real. And there is a theory out there that the national parks were created to prevent any kind of development around these entry points to these subterranean tunnels where these things live.
Do you think they're like a Bigfoot or something?
I think that they're related to the Nephilim, just like I think that the Kandahar giant that was recovered by the special operations team in Afghanistan in 2005. That story's out there. It's been verified by pilots. The guy who piloted the C-130 that took this thing back to the States from Afghanistan. These guys saw this blue-skinned giant with feet that were 1.5 feet longer than the largest boot that any of the guys were wearing. They said this thing probably weighed 1,100 pounds. He killed the first special operations team that tried to kill him. He ate them, and the second special ops team killed this thing. Then they airlifted it back to the base in Kandahar, had it on a pallet, covered it with a tarp, and it was completely hush hush. They loaded it up and they took it probably to Groom Lake or some laboratory in a deep underground military base where they're probably doing work on the DNA. So these things have been around a long time.
Soldiers. Probably at Wright-Patterson.
I haven't heard that story.
Dude, look up the Kandahar Giant.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. That is a trip. Yeah, sometimes when we're going into other countries, it's not exactly for what they say it is. I heard that we recovered some sort of portal device, or it was like a
Stargate.
A Stargate.
You guys have seen those videos, right? Of the old archaeological explorations where they've discovered these things that look exactly like the movie Stargate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all real.
It's not fiction. That's what's so bizarre. It's like,
no, what's fiction is the reality they try to sell you. The left-right paradigm, politics, the media, Hollywood, Operation Mockingbird, all this bullshit. I mean, that reality is fake. The true reality is what they're hiding from everybody. And they know.
I heard there was a lot of stuff at the Smithsonian.
Well, the Smithsonian got caught disposing of large human skeleton remains. So if you search up in the New York Times archives and you get on DuckDuckGo, don't use Google because they're going to tell you. But if you go to DuckDuckGo and you search up large skeletons discovered New York Times archives, you will find dozens of articles of large human skeletons that are recovered in the southwestern United States in the late 1800s, some of which were 15 feet tall and weighed 400 pounds and had molars big enough to crush a coconut.
I didn't dig too far into that, but that what?
There's also a Hopi Indian legend about a battle that occurred of the ancient Hopi tribes against a race of red-haired cannibalistic giants. And so the Hopis battled these giants and actually drove them into some type of a tunnel in a cave and were able to trap them inside this cave with boulders and rocks. And this huge battle took place and tons of Hopi Indians were killed by these things, but they ended up winning and they were able to seal this cave entrance. Now, here's where it gets weird. One of the articles in the New York Times archives talks about these guys that were drilling wells in I don't remember what part of the Southwest it was, but they opened up this cave entrance and they found 200 large skeletons inside. They were between 8 and 12 feet tall, and it just coincides to this Hopi legend.
Not a legend.
It's not.
That's blowing my mind. That's so cool. So, on one of your shows, you were talking about Project Bluebeam, and I'm surprised a lot of people don't even know what that is. Could you just go into that a little bit?
So are you guys familiar with Ray Kurzweil? Do you remember that name?
I do.
So as you know, Ray Kurzweil was the original chief engineer for Google, multi-billionaire, and he wrote a book called The Singularity is Near. In The Singularity is Near, he talks about something called fourth dimensional programmable nanotechnology that is known as barium foglet nanotechnology that is dispersed as an aerosol by planes in the sky. Well, these things are nanotech. So we're talking about microscopic programmable computer chips that are sprayed up in the sky and can be controlled from the earth. They can create any image they want as a holographic image with this technology. And if you think about the Spider-Man movie where they have all the drones and they could make the drones create, a creature or a machine or a ship or whatever they want with these drones, that is exactly what this nanotechnology does. And so I have a video that I can pull up here and share with you guys if you want.
Sure.
To find out what's on that video, come back for part 2 of Unchained Brain Podcast on Our Twisted Universe.